大家好，我係鄺明書。嗱，大家有冇諗過咧？一本書嘅翻譯版權其實係點樣做嘅咧？如果一本書出版咗之後，其實我哋係點樣可以將佢變成唔同嘅語言，可以喺世界各地裏邊出版呢？今日咧，我哋咧揾到一位出版社嘅負責人，佢咧就係專將我哋嘅中文版權嘅書就賣到去世界各地。咁佢係我哋嘅嘉賓咧，我哋介紹一下係游小倩。Hi, Maria. How are you?
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for coming up to share with you your view in terms of how we could get our copyright sold in another language. Well, it is my understanding that Peony Literary Agency is a new literary agency launched by 2009. How did you come up with such an innovative idea at the very beginning? And also, has your personal background or working experience in the past has anything to do with this?
Yes, well, originally the idea of agenting in Asia actually came up with my two directors, Duncan Jepson and Ilyas Khan.
Right.
That was about 4 or 5 years ago, and they approached me to set up another agency called Creative Work Literary Agency, which I did. I set it up and then ran it. And then 4 years later, I took it over and it became Peony as of last year. And it is something quite different, which doesn't really exist in this part of the world. And we've discovered since that there really is a need for writers in this part of the world to have an agent selling their copyright abroad. And I think my experience in the past works very well in the sense that I've worked in book publishing in the UK. That's where my training ground lies in effect. I was an editor at many different publishers in the UK, which are those, I've worked with many editors, and it's those editors I now sell copyright to, so it works very well. And I worked in quite a wide range of publishers, both fiction, non-fiction, commercial, literary, translation.
Children's books.
Yes, children's books. So it stands me, I think it's a good grounding for agenting. And then on top of that, I have a degree in Mandarin Chinese, which gives me an understanding of the way literature works in this part of the world. So I think the combination of the two gives me, I think, a good grounding to what I do today.
Could you please share with me some of the literary work that were introduced to the West by your agency in the past, and what countries and cities are they?
Well, probably the easiest to describe and talk about are the two most recent ones that I've sold, one being Su Tong, who is a well-known writer in China.
Right.
And I sold his recent novel, Boat to Redemption, as it's called in English. The Chinese title is He An. And I've sold that to the UK,
right,
and then subsequently to Japan, Turkey and France. And then on top of that, what's really helped the book, I think, is the new literary prize that's been launched here in the English language called the Man Literary Prize. And that really helped pinpoint the novel, I think, on the map. And that happened at the same time as selling those rights. So that's one example. And then the other one, which has been a very interesting experience, is something called The Fat Years, or in Chinese, Sheng Shi, by Chan Kun-chun, which was interesting because it's editors in the West very quickly understood what that book was about, even though I sold it with no translation, which is what I normally do. Normally I prepare a sample translation of each author I sell, but in this case it was word of mouth. I spoke to editors about it and I could describe it in about 2 or 3 lines, and they were immediately excited about it. So I've sold it to the UK, to America, and almost 10 European languages now.
Really?
And a lot of that really has been word of mouth. Editors have been talking to other editors, and then I've been sending them press cuttings that I've translated from Hong Kong, which is where it's been published, and in Taiwan. And it's escalated to the point where there was a real sort of excitement. There still is a real excitement with this book. It's yet to be translated into English and won't be published. Probably the first foreign edition won't be until 2011, realistically.
Based on your experience, what are the issues that the writers and the publishers most concerned about during the negotiation process?
Well, there are a number. When you're negotiating contracts, normally there are a few areas, the main areas that both the publisher and the author really concentrate on. One is obviously the money, the advance, how much is going to be paid for the book. And then something that the agent will do for them, which is my client, that I'll do for my author, is how that advance is split up. So you get as much of the advance up front, because publishers like to stagger it as much as possible, so you have it in 3 or 4 parts. So you try and fight for your author, for your clients, to try and have as much of it up front. So that's the main area. Then obviously the way the royalties are paid is another part of it. And then another issue which is more relevant to translation is how the translation part is paid, whether it's part of the main advance or whether it's paid separately to the translator. Is that all set against the whole advance before you start getting earning royalties? It gets complicated, but it's the payment of the translation and then also the delivery of the translation and how that relates to the payment. So effectively it's actually payments that you concentrate on, and then obviously publicity. If I would always try and negotiate for my author to be sent to that country to publicise the book, to see if I can actually negotiate a flight or part of a flight, because I think it's so important that authors can actually go out and talk about the book, especially if they can speak English.
So Marysia, tell me by your observation from the point of view of the Western publishers, what are the differences between the attractiveness of the literary work from China, Taiwan and Hong Kong?
Well, in the West, I don't think they necessarily differentiate between Taiwan, China and Hong Kong. I do as an agent, in the sense, you know, I know where all my authors are from. Most of my authors are from China and Taiwan, but I don't actually have really any from Hong Kong, though Chan was educated here. He now lives in China. So I would love to see more of what's being written here, but as yet I haven't received very much. I receive a lot from the other territories, but not so much from Hong Kong, so I'd love to see the writing that goes on here in Hong Kong.
我自己都係一個作者，希望我自己嘅作品呢有一日能夠被翻譯成其他嘅語言，喺世界其他唔同嘅地方出現，咁就好啦。嗱，時間差唔多，喺呢度呢，我哋多謝Marysia，thank you Marysia。
Thank you。
下個禮拜我哋翻嚟再見啦，拜拜。